December 17, 1944. Dawn breaks over Hansfeld, Belgium, and SS Obersturmbannführer Joachim Peiper stands among what looks like a gift from the gods of war. Rows upon rows of jerry cans stretch before him, thousands of them, distinctive olive-drab American fuel containers abandoned in the chaos of retreat. His Tiger tank had sputtered to a halt just hours earlier, fuel gauge reading empty, and now here sits 50,000 gallons of high-octane gasoline. His men frantically begin refueling, pouring American fuel into German tanks, and for a moment it feels like victory. But as Peiper walks through this bounty, counting the seemingly endless supplies, a crushing realization settles over him like the morning fog. If the Americans can afford to abandon such quantities, if they can leave behind what Germany would guard with entire divisions, then this war is already over. 6 months before this moment, Albert Speer had presented Hitler with a report that should have ended all offensive operations immediately. Allied bombing had systematically destroyed Germany's synthetic fuel production, the lifeblood of the Wehrmacht. The Luna Works, which produced 175,000 tons in April, managed only 5,000 tons by September. The numbers told a story of inevitable defeat. In 1944, the United States produced 1.8 billion barrels of crude oil. Germany, including all synthetic production and captured Romanian fields, managed just 33 million barrels, less than 2% of American output. The Third Reich was attempting to wage mechanized warfare with horse-drawn logistics, while America drowned its armies in petroleum abundance. The contrast was staggering and absolute. The Ardennes offensive required 4.5 million gallons to reach Antwerp. Hitler allocated 5 million, but only half was actually delivered due to transportation problems. The German High Command was betting everything on capturing enemy supplies, a strategy revealing terminal weakness rather than strength. Meanwhile, Americans had constructed Pluto, pipeline under the ocean, and the Red Ball Express, delivering 12,500 tons of supplies daily to front lines. By December 1944, American forces were consuming 1.2 million gallons daily, while receiving 1.4 million gallons. They were accumulating reserves while fighting. The mathematics of the war had already determined its outcome. Peiper wasn't a fool. At 29, he was one of the youngest regimental commanders in the Waffen-SS, a veteran who understood that in modern warfare, fuel was more precious than ammunition. His Kampfgruppe had been designated the Schwerpunkt, the decisive point of the entire offensive. 2 days before the attack, General Sepp Dietrich was blunt at the final briefing. "You will have enough fuel to reach the Meuse if you capture American supplies." The fuel allocation for Kampfgruppe Peiper was 31,000 gallons, enough for 50 miles of combat operations. The distance to the Meuse was 65 miles. The mathematics of failure were built into the plan from the beginning, and everyone knew it, but nobody dared say it. When his column began moving on December 16th, Peiper issued strict orders. Tanks would operate in single file to conserve fuel. Engines would be shut off during any halt longer than 5 minutes. The capture of American fuel dumps was priority 1, above even tactical objectives. That same morning, just 20 miles away, Captain James Rose of the U.S. 743rd Tank Battalion recorded in his unit diary, "Received fuel resupply, 8,000 gallons. Third delivery this week. Storage tanks already at capacity." The contrast couldn't have been starker. One side was rationing every drop, while the other had so much they couldn't store it all. The American depot at Hansfeld wasn't even a primary facility. It was a forward supply point, what the U.S. Army classified as a Class 3B depot, a temporary fuel station. Yet what Peiper found there exceeded the monthly allocation for an entire German panzer division. As his men refueled, they made more discoveries. Sergeant Wilhelm Hoffmann found shipping manifests in the depot office. The papers indicated this fuel had been shipped from Texas to New York, across the Atlantic to Liverpool, across the Channel to Normandy, and trucked 400 miles to Hansfeld. The journey of over 6,000 miles had taken less than 6 weeks. Hoffmann showed the papers to Peiper, who read them twice, then crumpled them up. His face went pale. They both understood what this meant. Another soldier found Stars and Stripes newspapers dated December 15th, just 2 days old. The headlines celebrated the opening of a new fuel pipeline from Cherbourg to Verdun capable of delivering 300,000 gallons per day. a single pipeline delivering more fuel daily than Kampfgruppe Peiper would use in the entire offensive. With the captured 50,000 gallons, Peiper's column surged forward. They reached Bulge by noon, capturing additional supplies and maps showing other American fuel depots in the area. But the maps revealed a disturbing truth. The Americans had fuel stockpiles everywhere. Every major crossroads had a depot. By evening on December 17th, Peiper's spearhead reached Stavelot, site of a major American fuel depot containing over 2 million gallons. Here was enough fuel to guarantee reaching the Meuse. But as the first German vehicles approached, American engineers were already at work. Captain John Brewster of the 291st Engineer Combat Battalion had received warning. His orders were simple: deny fuel to the enemy at all costs. The Stavelot depot contained 2,189,000 gallons across 15 acres. At 4:30 p.m., as Peiper's advanced guard approached, Brewster gave the order. The explosion was immediate and tremendous. A wall of fire shot up maybe 100 feet. Within minutes, the entire depot was an inferno that would burn for 3 days, consuming enough fuel to have powered Peiper's entire division to Antwerp and back. Peiper's lead tanks arrived to find a pillar of black smoke rising 1,000 feet into the sky. He stood on his tank turret watching the flames in silence for perhaps 5 minutes. Then he climbed down and told his driver, "They can afford to burn 2 million gallons to deny them to us. What are we doing here?" Across the Ardennes, American engineers were destroying fuel dumps rather than risk capture. At Troisponts, 1.1 million gallons burned. At Spa, 2.5 million gallons were destroyed. In total, Americans deliberately destroyed over 8 million gallons during the first week, more than Germany had allocated for the entire operation. But what seemed like catastrophic loss to the Germans was routine procedure to the Americans, who knew more fuel was already on its way. The ability to casually destroy millions of gallons was rooted in a supply system beyond German comprehension. The Red Ball Express delivered 412,000 tons of supplies using 6,000 trucks operating around the clock. Each truck consumed 40 gallons daily. The operation itself burned more fuel than German Army Group B received monthly. Colonel James Snyder, Chief Logistics Officer for 1st Army, recorded on December 18th, fuel receipts yesterday, 1,847,000 gallons. Fuel issued, 1,623,000 gallons. Net gain to reserves, 224,000 gallons. The Americans were building stockpiles during the largest German offensive of 1944. They treated millions of gallons with the indifference Germans reserved for individual cans. By December 19th, as Peiper's forces engaged defenders at Stoumont, the fuel crisis had become critical. Tanks were being abandoned with empty fuel tanks rather than from battle damage. Peiper consolidated his remaining fuel, perhaps 8,000 gallons, enough for one more engagement or retreat, but not both. Meanwhile, Allied planners were preparing for January operations. Brigadier General Maurice Gilland requested 245 million gallons for the coming month. The request was approved without discussion. On December 20th, Peiper received a radio message. Fuel convoy destroyed by Allied aircraft. No resupply possible. Continue with available resources. He called his commanders together and told them the truth. We have fuel for perhaps 20 kilometers. The Meuse is 30 kilometers away. According to witness testimony, he added, "Gentlemen, we have discovered we are fighting an enemy who burns more fuel to deny it to us than we receive for this entire operation." This realization was spreading through German ranks. General Otto von Manschufel, commanding 5th Panzer Army, later wrote, "When I learned Americans had destroyed 8 million gallons rather than risk our capturing it, I knew the offensive had failed before it began." Colonel Friedrich von der Heydt, captured December 23rd, told interrogators, "Your soldiers throw away chocolate. My men haven't seen chocolate in 2 years. You burn millions of gallons. We measure by the liter. How can we fight such abundance?" The psychological impact was devastating. Every German who witnessed American abundance understood they weren't fighting a war, but participating in their own execution. By December 21st, Peiper was surrounded at La Glise, his tanks immobile. American forces surrounding him, 31st Infantry Division, 82nd Airborne, 3rd Armored, had a combined fuel allocation of 340,000 gallons for that single day. Peiper had perhaps 1,000 gallons remaining. The American response demonstrated industrial warfare at its peak. Patton's Third Army pivot north required 350,000 gallons just for redeployment, considered impossible by German standards, yet accomplished in 3 days. December 23rd brought clear weather. Allied aircraft flew 2,000 sorties, each burning fuel at rates that would have grounded the Luftwaffe for weeks. One day's air operations consumed more than Germany's entire offensive allocation. On the night of December 23rd to 24th, Peiper abandoned his vehicles and escaped on foot. Of 119 tanks and assault guns that began the offensive, 39 remained operational but immobilized. These were destroyed with remaining ammunition. Millions of Reichsmarks of equipment destroyed by empty fuel tanks. Of 5,000 men who began with Kampfgruppe Peiper, approximately 770 returned. They had advanced 60 miles, captured several depots, and discovered the truth about Allied logistics. A truth that would haunt every German soldier who witnessed it. The fuel crisis shaped every aspect of the battle. Medical services were crippled. Ambulances couldn't evacuate wounded. Men died waiting for transportation that never came. One German doctor testified, "We had excellent surgeons, supplies captured from Americans, but no fuel for ambulances. Men died who could have been saved with 10 kilometers of transport." The discoveries shattered German propaganda about American weakness. Soldiers had been told Americans were soft and incapable. Then they discovered Americans could destroy more than Germany possessed. The myth of German superiority couldn't survive contact with American logistics. German prisoners from the Ardennes were more shocked by American waste than firepower. Seeing GIs discard half-eaten rations or use gasoline for heating shattered morale more than artillery. One captured soldier told interrogators, "We knew your production numbers abstractly, but seeing soldiers waste more than we possessed made them real. Every German who saw your casual abundance knew the war was hopeless." This knowledge spread through letters despite censorship. Soldiers wrote home. Americans wash clothes in gasoline. They feed chocolate to dogs. They fire artillery for Christmas. We cannot fight infinity. The numbers tell everything. German offensive allocation, 5 million gallons. Fuel destroyed by Americans, 8 million gallons. Daily American consumption, 7.5 million gallons. Peiper's capture at Hansfeld, 50,000 gallons. Percentage of American daily supply, 0.6%. The Battle of the Bulge killed 19,000 Americans and perhaps 100,000 Germans. It destroyed the Wehrmacht's last reserves. But its lasting impact was spreading knowledge through German ranks that America possessed incomprehensible abundance. By 1944, America produced 50% of world manufacturing. A new aircraft every 5 minutes, a ship daily, a tank every 7 minutes. The Axis combined produced less than 2% of American petroleum. Every major German offensive after 1942 had been constrained by fuel. Every American offensive was supported by abundance German planners couldn't conceive. The final irony came when American forces cataloged abandoned German equipment at La Galice. They found 39 perfectly functional tanks abandoned solely for lack of fuel. Major Robert Harrison's salvage report noted, "Fuel required, 8,000 gallons. Classification, minimal. Source, local reserve. Time, for hours. What was impossible for the Germans? 8,000 gallons to save their best tanks was beneath American notice. A minor request using local reserves. In 1984, 40 years after the battle, veterans gathered at La Galice. Former German soldier Karl Wertmann stood beside the museum's Tiger tank with former Staff Sergeant Roy Anderson of the 30th Infantry Division. "We always wondered why you stopped," Anderson said. "We thought it was tactical." Wertmann laughed bitterly. "We stopped because the tanks were empty. You burned millions to keep it from us. How could we fight that?" The Tiger tank still sits in La Galice Museum today, fuel gauge reading empty, a monument to when tactical excellence met logistical reality and lost. Visitors ask why such powerful tanks were abandoned. The answer is simple: no fuel. This was Peiper's discovery at Hansfeld that December morning. Not just that America had more fuel, but that American abundance operated on a scale, making German scarcity irrelevant. The war was over when American industrial capacity mobilized. Hansfeld revealed what had been true since 1942. Germany fought the impossible, measuring defeat in gallons while America measured victory in oceans.